It's February 16th, 2022. And as I make this video, it looks like there has not been an attack on Ukraine. It's mid-afternoon in eastern Ukraine, and it looks like nothing has happened. So it looks like a lot of the U.S. intelligence projections either were wrong or maybe, well, maybe since they were called on it, they decided to do something a little different. But I would say that this does not necessarily indicate that the risk is over. In a lot of ways, the signs we're seeing right now could actually indicate the risk has gone up. And that is that you have kind of a change in tone from Moscow. On the one hand, they're visibly moving certain numbers of tanks and other military units back from the front, but how many? This is a classic deception to achieve tactical surprise in a strategic showdown, as you create a false thaw just before the attack goes in. Similar events were done by the Israelis before the Six-Day War and the Egyptians before the Yom Kippur War. So, these kind of things occur. And on the other hand, it's also possible that well, two things I think could be true. One, maybe there has been some behind-the-scenes improvement in the negotiations. I mean, if we go back to the Cuban Missile Crisis, we weren't admitting publicly the deal we actually struck with the Russians to end that either, if we recall. And of course, we were in a much stronger position in that one than we are in this one, needless to say. And there's also the fact that the Olympics are still going on, and perhaps there's a little bit of an agreement between President Xi and Putin not to, step on his little parade till the final ceremonies are over with and so forth, which would push us back into, early end of Sunday or maybe probably Monday or whatever. And there's perhaps no real urgency toward it moving at this time anyhow. And I think there's also good reasons why perhaps he might want to wait. After all, why not wait till this Nord Stream pipeline number 2 is actually online and Germany is getting the gas and so forth before they actually do something to cause sanctions to be put on them. After all, it's easier to give up on it when you're not getting them, not using it, than it is to give up on it once you're actually using it. That has a bigger effect on your domestic economy, So at any rate, whatever, we'll have to continue to keep an eye on this, and I do think it would be smart for us to make some actual concessions in these negotiations, and because after all, the people of Ukraine are the ones that are going to suffer if this thing happens, primarily. Okay, well, at any rate, if you like these videos, please give me a like, and if you haven't subscribed, please do. You can click the bell for notifications, and of course, any comments would be appreciated. But the main topic today I want to get into is the situation that developed with President Trump and his ongoing struggles with the forces that are against him. On the good side, Durham has released a court filing in which supports Trump's statements for years that he was being spied upon by the Hillary Clinton campaign. And apparently evidence of that sort has been developed by the independent counsel. And although the details are not in the filing, it looks like this will come forward in a court hearing over trying to get a Clinton-connected lawyer removed from a given case because of a conflict of interest. So we'll have to keep our eye on that one, but it is reinforcing his position that a lot of malfeasance was done against him. On the other hand, the malfeasance that is still being done against him also needs to be taken into account here. And as the Trump organization, which is his business empire, their auditing group that have been filing all of his tax filings and so forth for years, apparently has stabbed him in the back. This group called Mazen has declared that all of the filings they've put out between 2010 and 2022 are basically shouldn't be considered valid, and since the tax filings and various loan applications were based on this, that is a major stab in the back if there ever was one. And of course, that raises some certain issues here, like why did they do this? perhaps Arthur Anderson could explain that. I mean, if you've got the feds and the local state attorney general in New York working against Trump, I mean, totally biased, of course. I mean, they're not looking for justice or fairness here. They're looking to get Trump, right? Um, and I suspect that perhaps there were some inaccuracies there, but at any rate, you can see what could have happened. They were perhaps given a deal if you become if you join the prosecution rather than the defense, we can overlook your own indiscretions. Because after all, how could this have happened? They're supposed to be checking and auditing and assuring everything is accurate. And so they only just found out. They didn't know all along. That's what they're claiming. See, so and I think in a way Trump has a lawsuit against them, and maybe that would be a move he might want to make in order to tie them up a little bit on becoming a prosecution or plaintiff, depending on which case we're talking about, the civil or potential criminal case, a witness. Because after all, who did what and why did they do it that way? I don't know. Or maybe that would be a very dangerous idea. That's hard to say. But it does seem to me like this is not good for him at all. For one thing, I guess he needs to get a new accounting firm. And of course, who wants to sign on to that job right now? Seeing how the whole organization is in the crosshairs of this destructive prosecution and lawsuit. So, you have that situation developing, and we'll see how it pans out. But I all along I thought this area is the area of his greatest risk, just because, as we know, he generally has a tendency to kind of, how we say, overstate things or exaggerate. The biggest crowd ever, the greatest election margin ever. I mean, he tends to do this, right? Even our friends realize this, right? I mean, and so I think that leaves unforgiving prosecutors, if you will, and plaintiffs opportunity to pursue their endeavors. And another thing that's come up, which I've discovered yesterday, which is not necessarily good news either, there's a lot of focus on this issue of the destruction or how he's been handling presidential records. And the thing is, there was a act passed in 1978 after the Watergate thing and all that, called the Presidential Records Act or something to that effect. And essentially, that took effect basically starting with the beginning of Reagan's first term, and effectively requires that all these presidential records be saved and turned over to the archives when the National Archives when they leaves office. Well, the thing is, I was wondering, well, okay, yeah, but okay, if you don't do it, what's the penalty for it? Well, it isn't that severe as these federal laws go. I mean, there's potential for a fine, but I'm sure he can handle that. 3 years in prison, but that's maximum, and usually you never get that. In a case like this, probably whatever. Maybe house arrest or something with an ankle bracelet or whatever. And being disqualified for holding any U.S. government office. The latter one is the killer, obviously, and the one that the Democrats would be most interested in. I was wondering why they were really focusing so much on this issue. But since apparently it's alleged now, a lot of things have been put out and a lot of things are in flux here. For instance, this thing about tearing things up and flushing them down toilets and all this, I find this a little dubious, to say the least. I think he's denied it, but it does seem like there is some evidence, though, that he was tearing up records. And if that is the case, and if they can probably just prove one case where it really happened, remember that this trial would presumably occur in D.C. with a Democrat, Biden-appointed prosecutor, Democrat judge, Democrat jury, a Democrat appeals court above it. It doesn't look too good for the legal case there, does it? And probably any plea bargain he struck would probably include the latter. The third penalty would probably definitely be included in that, or they wouldn't make the deal, right? In other words, avoid the jail time and the fine. All you have to do, or whatever, is just accept that you're banned from holding public office, which would, of course, nix his 2024 race. And I suspect that's what the Democrats are up to under the current situation. It looks like he may or may not have blundered into that one. There are the 15 boxes which have been returned, and I don't know if things were torn up but actually taped back together. I'm not sure that would count, but you know how that goes. If anything is found to be missing, though, I don't know. Maybe they can't prove it. I'm just guessing this is something they're going to be trying for, but and we'll have to keep our eye on that one. At any rate, so I'll kind of wrap this up for now, and we'll see what happens on the upcoming issues in the Ukraine and so forth. Another minor thing I want to, well, not too minor, but it's interesting, is that Remington did a $73 million out-of-court settlement with the plaintiffs from the Sandy Hook incident from many years ago. Of course, these are things where they don't accept any, plea, and it's just an out-of-court plea deal. But it does get around a law that's supposed to protect gun manufacturers from these kind of lawsuits. In my own opinion, is that this probably doesn't set too much of a precedent, because you have a company that was declaring bankruptcy, and so and I think the pieces of it are being sold off to other companies, so probably this is an expedient deal just to get rid of the case so they can complete their financial transactions, so to speak. And but it does something to look for in the future. I think a more, let's say, vibrant company probably would have went to court all the way to the Supreme Court and might have won. Remember that the Supreme Court refused to hear the case preemptively when it was in state court. And so that's why the Supreme Court never ruled on it. But the Supreme Court configuration today is quite a bit different than the one that was there at the time it first came up. But anyway, that's something to note also. So I'll close this for now. The addresses of my various social media are listed in the descriptions below, and we'll close this for now.